Hi everybody, I'm Bree the Plant Lady, and today we are continuing with the second half of my early October tour from the JCRA Arboretum in Raleigh, North Carolina. All right, I'm back to the Arboretum after Tim and I had an awesome lunch. He's in the process of moving, so got him back on track, and I am here in the garden. I have a couple hours to kill before I get my COVID and flu vaccines. And I'm counting on feeling terrible tomorrow. But as I was walking in, I was like, where is the osmanthus that I'm smelling? And of course, as I mentioned earlier, it's something you always smell before you see. And here it is behind me. This is another orange variety like what I grow, Osmanthus fragrans variety aurantiacus. And well, let me turn the camera around so you can see it close. And though this one's in a lot of shade, it's still blooming really well. Of course, the shade is cast from the enormous crepe myrtle here. This is the entryway that has these two epic crepe myrtles. And this is Fantasy. I showed you Townhouse earlier. And these trees really do just have such incredible stature. Their bark is beautiful. It's not about the flowers with these crepe myrtles, though they do bloom. It's really more about their bark and their grandeur. Holy smokes, they have moved a lot of soil. This is really exciting. And I don't know anything about this crepe myrtle, but this is really pretty. I don't see a label, but that is a cool plant. Really nice flowers. It's easy to get distracted here. Also, more osmanthus are blooming. Everything just smells so good. But I am so impressed with these giant mounds that I do feel certain. I remember Mark saying this was part of the design intention, was just to raise the grade and create high screening. So they are well on their way. Well, this section of the garden is an area that doesn't often get the spotlight, but it totally deserves it. That's a pseudo-larix here. This was the original location for the American Conifer Society's collection. So you can see lots of really interesting conifers mixed in with other plants. This is Psychopsis sinensis, a really interesting plant that's related to Perodia. Cool winter bloomer, kind of odd but beautiful shape, very drought tolerant. This is actually kind of fun to see. This is Cephalotaxis Harringtonia, the straight species, and this is the berries, or its seed set. The seeds are actually inside this fruiting body. I grew up in Michigan with Taxus, the yew. This is the Japanese plum yew. This is the southern version of Taxus called Cephalotaxis. I don't think I've ever seen this much fruit on a single plant. It's really impressive. So in addition to having their conifers placed back here, this is also where they have their collection of maples. And of course, Japanese maple leaf is the logo for the Ralston Arboretum. And they've got a wonderful collection of really old specimens, pruned really nicely. You can see down this line. And of course, in probably a month or 6 weeks or so, the fall color will be outstanding. Well, everything here at the yurt is looking fun and exciting. And I see a lot of beautiful zinnias over here, which is great. They've gotten some of their cool crops in. I see some cabbage. But look, they've got great peppers growing, some cotton, of course some mums, and persimmons and kiwis growing across the front. It's just a great place for all the children's programming that they host here. I hibiscus are in bloom, and right now there is not a wedding set up in here, so we get to walk through and see. You know, I say this every time I come, that I really love a rose garden that isn't just about roses, and this is a great example of that. You know, mixed in with the roses are all the more important plants, things like salvia, I see lilium, perovskia, alliums, crinum. Of course, right now is a good time for roses. There's not a lot of black spot, and a lot of flowers are starting to come out. But it is really great to see this have so much diversity represented. It's just not a monoculture of roses, which I think is really important. But I'll go ahead and acknowledge some of these roses are pretty spectacular. Here is one called Obsamard, and boy, it's beautiful. Oh, and it smells really good. I've got good timing. They're setting up for a wedding. Oh, look at that crinum. I don't think I have any crinums blooming right now. I'll have to go home and check. Since I smelled that one rose back there, I should see if this one... Oh, it does. It also smells good. So I mentioned earlier the original conifer garden site. This is the newest section for the American Conifer Society, and you can see they have a lot of really great plants. We can grow a lot of different conifers here in the Southeast. Not always the same sort of traditional things, but still conifers, and they all look beautiful and give a lot of year-round interest. And of course, next to that is the Monocot garden, and that includes grasses and lilies and things essentially that germinate with one cotyledon leaf is what a monocot identifies. So this is a rain garden here that sort of gets you started into the monocot border, and you can see, you know, bananas, hedychiums, elephant ears, lots of different grasses, bananas, palm trees, cannas, you know, lots and lots of interesting plants fall into the category of being a monocot. This is particularly pretty. I don't see a label, but I really like the texture of this. I wonder if it is a type of Ceteria. Gonna have to ask Tim. Well, up here in the traditional annual bed trials, this is the food plot. You can see this okra is looking good. This is from All American Selections, Candlefire. And it's that name because it's got this nice burgundy fruit. And of course, lots of seed. Look at that. Oh my gosh. So much seed to collect. And everything in here is looking good. I mean, the tomatoes always look bonkers big, but they're healthy. They don't have spots on them. They're full of fruit. It kills me because they don't really ever harvest the fruit. There's just so much that could be eaten. But obviously these are all genetics that have good resistance to the common diseases that impact us here in the Southeast. So we've got Marzito, Bellatrix, Dark Star, and Midnight Snack. And I would say A+ on all these plants. I mean, look at how beautiful those lantanas look. And of course, vinca is just a fantastic plant to put out into full sun. I love Kufia. I've never met a Kufia I didn't like. Obviously, this bee is keen on this one. These are all beautiful and well worth growing. And of course, the pollinator activity is really off the charts here. And let me give you the names. Cubano Presidente, Sweet Talk Deep Pink, is that one there. Sweet Talk Lavender Splash here, and Sweet Talk Red, very appropriately named. Again, Kufia really is a genera of sun-loving plants that I think are well worth including in your gardens. Of course, as are coleus. Now, I did not have solar flare. I did have premium sun coral candy, and I don't like coleus that flower like this, so that's just a personal preference. Obviously the bees like it. I prefer this, flower free, without pruning. For some people, maybe you like that look, so you get to have both. I'm gonna continue sticking to these more vegetative varieties. I think that the color of the foliage looks beautiful. You're not so distracted with the limey green old flower stalks. And as we go through here, Gomphrena is amazing. Of course, lots of different dahlias and some different zinnias. You really can't beat these profusion zinnias. They do get some spots on them, but they're really reliable bloomers. But maybe the most reliable plant of all time, sweet potatoes. Now, unfortunately, these sweet potatoes don't actually produce edible tubers. They do produce tubers, they just don't taste good. And that's the main difference and why I like to grow the Treasure Island sweet potatoes, because those have the beautiful foliage and a delicious tuber. Well, and it's interesting because obviously they were trying to get that chartreuse one to climb and it didn't, but here we've got a variety that's more apt to climbing on its own. So good to notice without having to be trained. And the sun patience look pretty extraordinary, as do all these salvias and verbenas. It's really important that these trial gardens exist. You can learn so much about how a plant will perform, and that's why all the land-grant universities participate, so that you can get the best possible information for your region. Well, here on the outside of the Lath house, you can also see the signature dwarf loblolly pines, and then underneath that, all these great plantings. I think this agave ovatifolia frosty blue is one of the most extraordinary specimens. And yeah, it's just, everything's looking great. You can see the salvias are in bloom. And actually, here's a calibrachoa that has done well. I know Tim was really enthusiastic and hopeful. And let's go ahead and get this name for you guys. This is one double yellow super bells. And it is a nice little double form. And here at the base with Rudbeckia revertonii, which is, Muhlenbergia revertonii. That is a species I have not grown. I really like the texture, and I really like how that calibrachoa looks through it. Well, there's lots of people in the Lath house, so I'll probably not do a lot of commentary, but look at these fuchsias. They're blowing my mind, the fact that they've got fuchsias looking this happy and healthy and in full bloom. I'm looking for a label, and I don't see one. And again, I don't see a label, but this plant is amazing. Obviously a type of gesneriid. I am not brave enough to try to venture to tell you what it is, but I love it. Okay, here's more of it, so maybe I'll find it. Bet it's this, Eucadonia Adele. Isn't that spectacular? The bee just goes right in there. This Tricertus is really big. I love it. This is Tricertus fluffy orchid, and it has huge flowers, and it's really upright. Another fuchsia. It's like they're just showing off. That is Fuchsia Hatzbachii. Probably not what's being sold at Walmart in hanging baskets. And here is yet another fuchsia. This is Sanahalf Angel Earrings Cascade. So, I guess I can't say that fuchsias unilaterally don't live here. They just don't live at my house because I don't have a lath house with perfect drainage and the right amount of shade. It is really remarkable to see how well they do here. Well, and look at them successfully growing Rex begonias when all of mine have died. So, I would like to say it's not me, but maybe it is. They've got two. I think this must be Begonia First Blush T-Rex. I was trialing varieties from the T-Rex series, all of which died. So obviously there's some magic sauce here in the Lath house. So you've got to love this fabulous ginkgo. This is Chi-Chi. You can see because it's got these breast-like dangling things hanging from its trunk. And this is always a favorite combination of mine. The salvia. Is it salvia niponica? Might be. I don't see a label. Here is, maybe that other label was wrong. Hemiboea subacalis variety Janksiensis. Janksy bells. And I know I showed you this a year ago from a tour here, but I really like it. I still don't have any. And then next to it, more fluffy orchid. This is a really substantial Tricertus. I'll stand up and show you in scale how big that is. I need to get that. Add it to my wish list. Now, another favorite plant of mine, I need to check to see if mine is blooming. Theirs certainly is. This is Rostronicula dependens, and it's a great alternative to the traditional butterfly bush. As you can see, the bees are very busy on it, and it's got this great, weeping flower habit that is just so interesting and different. And you can actually grow it as a cutback perennial and just cut it to the ground, or you can, keep the branches up through the winter season. But overall, it's just one of those plants that it shouldn't be rare. It's really easy to grow, and it's really, really beautiful. So coming in here to the Xeric garden, lots of fun things to look at, especially if you're looking for drought tolerance. I really wanted to show you this fabulous grass. This is another Muhlenbergia, but this is a hybrid species, and its cultivar name is called Pink Flamingos. And I don't have this, but I want it. And I think that I would be able to grow this without any trouble in the Carolina Garden House native borders. You see how absolutely spectacular those flowers are. And unlike the traditional pink muley, which has sort of the same type of flowers but much lower, much closer to the clump, these really stand out upright and give the whole plant a whole new dimension of color and texture. I was just singing the praises of Permatil, and that is actually this sort of gray gravel, which is there to improve soil aeration and drainage. It also retains heat, so it does help create a bit of a microclimate here in the Xeric garden, because some of these plants wouldn't necessarily be hardy in the winters if it weren't for the heat that is absorbed in the expanded shale, expanded something that this is made out of. I do think this is a plant palette that deserves more time and attention. I probably should have planted more of this stuff in my front borders where it's so sunny and so dry and all sand versus some of the more woodland native things that I did bring in. But I'm sharing this journey with all of you so that you don't make the same mistakes as me and recognize that we're not getting colder, we're getting hotter, we're getting drier, we're getting more extreme weather. And this happens to be a plant palette that's very well suited for that kind of condition. Now, I don't want a yard full of agaves. I'm afraid of them. I trip and fall too much, and I don't want to lose an eye from having one of these spikes. But I can at least appreciate these plants in someone else's garden. Well, as I make my way up through the top here, I see lots more lycoris, and I'm a bit jealous because I don't think I have any in bloom right now. And it's nice to see that they have some. I do love lycoris radiata. They are so beautiful. Well, and as we come around the building, one of my all-time favorite trees ever is Sassafras Zumu. This is the Chinese sassafras, and you can see it's just starting to get some of its fall color, and it's truly exquisite. Like our native sassafras, really amazing coloration. And we're early for fall here. You don't usually get good color until after Thanksgiving here in the Piedmont, but just a little hint of it. And of course, we are going to be in the mid-40s for the next 2 nights, so it's gonna really feel like a complete season change. Don't you wish every walkway was bordered with pink muhly grass? Theirs is way ahead of mine, and it just is so beautiful. Well, everybody, I hope that you have enjoyed today's autumn tour here at the Ralston Arboretum. Of course, I highly recommend that you plan a visit. They have a lot of cool things coming up. I will be teaching a direct seeding class here in December, but you should totally check out Moonlight in the Garden. You do need to buy tickets in advance, and it always sells out. But it's a really cool after hours event where you can get totally inspired with creative landscape lighting. It is not a Christmas light display. It is a totally different immersive experience that I highly recommend. Well, I appreciate you all tuning in, and I look forward to sharing more updates with you this week. Thanks so much for watching, everybody. Happy gardening.